Hey, what is up, my White Schwartz Meisters? This is Dean again here with Burn One. About to give you guys a different type, like a really old deck profile, right? Some Dog Days deck. And I'm also going to try a new format for this, right? Like, so I was going through YouTube and I saw some of the Japanese channels. And they did their deck profiles like this, and I kind of like it, right? We're just going to like go over the cards. And this way you get to see the deck throughout the entire video, and we can look at interactions without a little bit of the awkwardness that I feel like older deck profiles did. So, okay, let's get into it. Dog Days. Why am I doing this deck profile? Well, I actually just started playing Dog Days again recently, just for fun, because it's just an old set that I like. And when I was revisiting it, there were some cool interactions with this set that I didn't know about previously. So let's get into the deck profile, and then I'll talk about some of the stuff. Okay, so at level 0, we have, this is a 2 or less stock 4K, and it's red. Just general 4K. We play it because I think 4Ks are actually pretty good in the meta right now, with the fact that clean cuts usually are about 3-5, and then chasers are also about 3-5. So having a 4K can both answer a chaser and like sometimes deny a clean cut. 4 of this runner, it's just a 1K, and it has the ability to change into this card if you're level 1 or higher, and this card is in your clock. So while this card is very small, it is still good going first. And then it usually put it in the back row then, and then save it for level 1, where you can then summon this out. This is like one of the best cards in the set, by the way. This is a 500 power global to animal and royalty, which is this. So doesn't hit everything. However, it does also have shift, which is a very strong mechanic in this set. And it also has pay 1 tap, grab a yellow card out of clock, which can include climaxes, and then you take 2 damage. So it's like a Ricky, but it only grabs yellow cards out of clock. Or it's like a Takitsubo, sorry. This is a drop searcher that goes to, it's like when it gets reversed, pay 1, ditch 1, drop search, but then this card goes to memory. This is our brainstorm. This is like something that I included that's not like the older list that I would see. This brainstorm only searches clock, but it's self-tap and it has shift. Very important for the set. Very important. We only play 2 of it. Then we get to level 1, and we're playing this card. It searches clock on reverse. Gets 1500 with something attacks in front of it. 4K base. Combos in the gold bar, of course. And it grabs any card out of clock. So you can grab events and climaxes if need be. The 1/1, 7K. It top checks on play. If it top checks a climax, it rests itself, and it has encore by putting a card from grave, a character from grave, to bottom of clock. Top check 4 event, it's like torch, and it only works if you have 6 or less stock. Level assist gives hexproof to middle, and I believe it has shift with level 1, so that means that you can only shift it out of clock if you're level 1 or higher. I believe that's how shift works. So now we get to level 2s. We have 2 of this 2/2. It's 7/5 base, 500 for every other, so it's 9/5. And if you have 4 other characters on play when it is played, it blind stocks. So it's actually a 2/1. It's just there as like a body in case you can't do other stuff. And also at level 2, we do play this counter. It's a 3K counter, and it also has, if this card is in memory, you can send this card to grave from memory to give your entire board hand encore. It's very important, like if you end up having to field cards like this, you can keep them around by getting rid of the garbage, or if you have to field this early, you can just hand encore it away to hopefully get the climax the next turn. Speaking of, right over here, we have this card. It's a 9/5. If this card is in clock, we can early play this. And then this card has on attack, you power pump something on your board. 4,000 power. It can power pump itself. And it has on reverse with the wind. Get on reverse, burn 1, and then send this to memory, and then it'll come back next turn with 3,500 extra power, which would mean that without a climax, this thing would swing in at 17K on the following turn as well. We play 2 healers. They also have pay 2 on reverse, burn 1. It's really good, especially with the 4,000 power pump from this, right? So at level 3, you could go 2 of this, 1 of this, get off double time machine, power pump this to like 15K. Get that extra burn 1. And then one of the clock kicker, the Leo, it's this card is actually just like strictly worse than this. It gets 500 for every other, so it sits at 11.5 on your turn. I don't remember if it has cross turn power. I don't believe it does. And then has pay one clock kick on the turn it's played, and it's got some like truly awful effect. It's like pay two, grab a card out of clock, take a damage, or I think you have to discard a card too. I forget. Like this card is like kind of awful, but you know, SP. So yeah, so that's the deck. But like kind of talking about some of the plays, right? So the reason I'm even doing a deck profile on this is because I thought this deck had some insane plays when I was playing. All right, namely because of Shift. I think that Shift is like a mechanic that I think it's the new Love Life. No, it's the new Idolmaster, I believe, has as like one of its like lower end archetypes. But Shift is actually kind of insane when you get to play with it, especially with a card like this that has Clock Encore. Because the reason we only play 2 Brainstorms is if you change into this at level 1, if your opponent kills this card, you can put this card to the bottom of your clock to then shift into your Brainstorm the next turn. Also, if this card gets answered and you're going into level 2, you can of course put your early play condition into your clock. So that way you always have it. You don't even have to hold this card, right? Like your opponent killing this generates you the advantage for this and this. Additionally, when looking at your opening hand, right? Like let's say you have like runner, like this is a pretty common like opening hand, right? Like let's say you have runner, this 1/1, this thing, and you kind of like, right, like you don't want to get rid of any of these cards, right? If you clock the shift, you get the knowledge. So if you clock the shift, or like either one, right, you get the knowledge of what you draw. So then you can choose in the main phase to then you can just basically use this as like a sandbag for your clock draw, like, right? You can clock draw this, see what you draw. Like let's say you draw this after clocking this, you can just grab this, you can just swap them, right? And then you can hold something else. Or like the same thing, like let's say you have like this, right? You have all of these. And then like you have a gold bar, right? You clock this, you draw a second one of these. You just swap the second one with the Brainstorm, so you get your Brainstorm back if you decide that's what you want. Or like if you draw like an extra gold bar, you can swap the gold bar with this and then use this as like a climax stitch. And then this is insane because it always lets you get those. Additionally, with this card that only grabs yellow cards, let's say that this is not in clock, or you don't have these in hand, you could. This is a little bit worse, right? Because this is like you can turn this into like a search tricky kind of, where you can clock this to put this at the bottom of clock, and then you can use this to grab this out. But like, right, it's like those interactions are all like extremely cool, I think, as far as like the way the powers go. And then another thing that I do want to mention, the only other reason I'm even doing this deck profile, is this card is extremely good in the standby meta. It's on a win trigger, so we can bounce cards. It power pumps to insane levels, so that like most standby decks can't like do anything about this, right? When this thing swings in at 14.5 base, you can put the level assist down behind it, make it 16k. They really can't do anything about this. And then it time machines away, and it'll come back and blow up their board the second turn, right? So this is like 2 turns of board wipes, plus the win trigger. Well, you're like, your deck isn't like super good, it's like in the early game, except for the fact this card is pretty big, right? It's 7k if attacks last, 8k with the climax, 8/5 with one of these. So this card can kind of stress a standby board, not really, but kind of. You can answer A lane, which sometimes it's all they have, right? Because standby deck usually plays a bunch of heavy costed cards, so sometimes this is just good enough. Like one reverse, like 8k and an 8/5 is usually sometimes enough, because like, right, they might have like a straggler lane, and then that's just enough to clean up 2 cards on their board. Win trigger at any point of the game, of course, hurts them, and then you go into the level 2 and you start playing down the Rebeccas, and they're just too big for your opponent to answer. And then they disappear, they come back next turn, and then they kill their board again, right? So it's like actually pretty decent in the standby meta. Overall, I know it's not the best deck. It's not a good deck, but it's definitely a fun deck, and I enjoyed getting to play around with the shift mechanic and seeing how this mixed with this allows me to set up all kinds of cool plays. And I kind of just wish that they would revisit like this with more modern cards, right? I wish that we would kind of get to see decks like this that have unique game styles that require a lot more thinking than like some of the modern cards. Because I found this like an actual blast to play. But yeah, so that's it for my Dog Days deck profile. Maybe if you're out there and you're wanting to play Dog Days, maybe I've given you a reason to bust it out. But until next time, this is Dean signing out.